Okay, so today's video is going to be a battle video between the Samsung Galaxy Tab A8 and the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7. Let's go ahead and jump in. Now, starting off from the top, and that is, of course, with the design, looking at just the all-new Samsung Galaxy Tab A8 here, which is, of course, the successor to the Galaxy Tab A7, you will already notice some elements that are just way too familiar. Starting off just with that antenna band, right? So they both share that. You will see just the camera placement, and you will also notice some pretty subtle changes right now. Trust me when I say this, those changes, although subtle, really make a difference because they really make the Galaxy Tab A8 stand out when compared to the Galaxy Tab A7, right? So these very sharp edges, right? These sharp corners that you now have with the Samsung Galaxy Tab A8 kind of just give it a more premium look, you know, just with that boxy shape that it has when compared to the Galaxy Tab A7, of course. So that boxy shape that it has here just make it look a lot more premium as opposed to the more rounded corners that are found on the Galaxy Tab A7 here. You will also notice that the cameras found on this tablet are different from each other. The Galaxy Tab A7 here is sharing a more squarish look when it comes down to that rear camera, as opposed to the Galaxy Tab A8, the newest one, which is sharing a round, you know, the camera module is round, and you know, each single camera on the back there, 8 megapixel, of course. So the same camera that you find here on the Galaxy Tab A7 is the same one you will find on the new one, the Galaxy Tab A8. Same deal with the front. So the front, in terms of camera placement, is essentially the same thing, and of course that's going to be 5 megapixels for either one of those cameras. And then everything else kind of remains the same, right? So you find the same usual suspects, right? So the power button, the volume rocker, the mics are actually essentially the same. You do have 2 mics on each tablet. The only thing that's different is that, you know, on the side here you have a mic on the side of each tablet, but on the Galaxy Tab A7 you have the mic at the bottom right next to the USB Type-C, whereas on the Galaxy Tab A8 the second mic is at the top in between the 2 speakers. And speaking of the 2 speakers, you still have that quad speaker setup, and of course Dolby Atmos, and surprisingly loud, right? So every now and then, of course, if you've watched my comprehensive review of the Galaxy Tab A7 and even the Galaxy Tab A8, you will know that as long as the audio that you're playing on either one of these tablets, as long as it's good quality, you will get it, you know, to be pretty loud, and it will keep a good chunk of the quality. Whereas if it's just decent quality, the sound would get distorted the louder you go. But anyway, so you have a quad speaker setup here on either one of these, and this is pretty cool, pretty good for, you know, entertainment. It's pretty loud. It really gets you immersed, especially if you're playing a game or if you're watching a movie or anything like that. You have a USB Type-C port, as I mentioned. You also have same location there. You also have headphone jacks, and of course the micro SD card slot for you to expand the storage. You can expand the storage on either one of these tablets at up to 1 terabyte using micro SD card. My Galaxy Tab A8 is a 32 gigs, and so is my Galaxy Tab A7 here. Now you do have the option to go for a higher tier with the Galaxy Tab A8. You could go at up to 64 gigs and up to 128 gigs, I believe. So 64 and 128 gigs will offer you an additional 1 gig of RAM for a grand total of 4 gigs of RAM for the Galaxy Tab A8 64 gigs or the Galaxy Tab A8 128 gigs. Whereas the Galaxy Tab A7 can only go as high as 64 gigs, and that one will offer you an additional 1 gig of RAM as well for a total of 4 gigs of RAM. Now let's talk about the display here, and this is where you will find the next, I guess, somewhat major difference between the two. The Galaxy Tab A7 here is boasting a 10.4 inches display, whereas here with the Galaxy Tab A8 or the new Galaxy Tab A8, you have a slightly larger display at 10.5 inches. And by the way, if this is your first time visiting, welcome to the channel. Of course, I'm certainly hoping that you are enjoying the content so far, which if you are, please do me a favor, hit both the like and the subscribe button there. I truly appreciate that. But anyway, so let's get back to the display here. So the resolution is slightly different. On the Samsung Galaxy Tab A7, you will have a resolution of 2000 by 1200, and that's on a slightly smaller display as opposed to the Galaxy Tab A8, where you have a resolution of 1920 by 1200. So image quality, when you compare them side by side, not much of a difference, but if you were trying to be a stickler and trying to base your purchase decision off of that, you would probably go for the Galaxy Tab A7 because it's a little bit more pixel dense, right? You know, higher resolution, smaller screen, as opposed to this one, larger display, you know, and slightly less resolution. But it doesn't really matter when you look at them. The only difference that I'm noticing here is, for some reason, I feel like the Galaxy Tab A8 may be a tiny bit cooler. It could be just my eyes, right? I feel like the Galaxy Tab A7 is slightly warmer than the Galaxy Tab A8, but then again, that could just be me. And they are also both a TFT display, and of course, these displays are calibrated by Samsung, which is like one of the top manufacturers when it comes down to display. So entertainment, excellent here. I have no problem. This is, I always say it, this is not like those very cheap TFT that you may find on, you know, even cheaper tablets, right? So it's very well calibrated. Playing games on here is pretty neat. Watching movies and all of that good stuff. Now, when the Galaxy Tab A7 came out, it came out the box with Android 10, obviously upgradable to Android 11 and Android 12 and so forth. Whereas the Galaxy Tab A8 comes with Android 11 loaded on here. Obviously, that means that it will be supported a year longer than the Galaxy Tab A8. So those are some of the things to think about if you are in the market for either one of them. In terms of additional specs and performance, of course, the Galaxy Tab A7 here is loaded with the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 versus the 2021 Galaxy Tab A8, which is loaded with the Unisoc Tiger T618. Now, in terms of performance, fairly at the same level, if you ask me. When you buy this, generally people who buy this are looking for tablets to just do kind of like just basic stuff, right? Day-to-day simple stuff, checking emails, you know, navigating the internet, things like that. And they're both, I would say, go about at the same speed, I would say. It only comes down to gaming. When it comes down to gaming, I did notice that on here, games were loading a tiny bit, well, some games were loading a tiny bit faster than here, but I did notice that some games were loading a tiny bit faster on here compared to here. Now, when it comes down to something like PUBG, for example, frame rate, yeah, you definitely want to go with the Galaxy Tab A8. So slightly better when it comes down to gaming. So if it comes down to gaming, you're looking for a tablet for gaming and they're both the same price, if you need to pick one, just go for the Galaxy Tab A8 because it's going to be a tiny bit better. Otherwise, everything else remains the same, whether you're watching movies. It's essentially the same experience. Obviously, you have One UI loaded, but neither one supports the Samsung S Pen. They also do not support Samsung DeX, but as I mentioned before, you can always use Samsung Flow in order to cast your display onto another device, like a phone or a computer or something like that. Now, let's talk camera real quick. As I mentioned, 8 megapixel cameras on the back here. They both share the same, it's essentially the same camera. That's the same thing you will also find on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite. The front facing camera, the selfie camera, is also going to be the same thing, so 5 megapixel. And these are not top-notch cameras, right? Obviously, these are budget tablets, and you wouldn't be expecting to find something that is equivalent to what you would find on a Galaxy Tab, I don't know, S7 Plus or an iPhone or anything like that, right? So I'm just gonna tell you what I always say. As long as your setting is well lit, you should have decent pictures, you know, coming out of it. Video should be okay. So picture quality are decent as long as you do your part in, you know, making sure that the setting is well lit. Now, when it comes down to battery, also same battery size really. And from what I remember, when this thing, the Galaxy Tab A7 was brand new, I was getting rough, well, it was an all-day tablet, which is the case now with the Galaxy Tab A8 here. It's the same size battery, as a matter of fact, so 7040 milliamp hour. So that's always going, you know, your type of usage is going to dictate how long this lasts, right? But I can tell you that if you just do light to moderate usage, you should be able to go all day with either one of these tablets here. They are also fast charge capable at up to 15 watt, but they come standard with a 7 watt charger or 7 watt brick. And I think that covers about it all. I did mention that it does not support the Samsung S Pen, but you can grab a capacitive pencil and you should still be able to take down notes. You won't, you know, it won't be as smooth, it won't feel as natural as the Samsung S Pen does on the S6 Lite or the S6 or the S7 and so forth, but it's something to consider. That's, you know, just an alternative. You can grab one off of Amazon and be able to use it there. Now, in summary, here's my take after that very short comparison. if you are in the market for either one of these two, I've said it a million times, right? So the channel always leans towards, value, right? So I would always tell you to go for the previous gen, which is the Galaxy Tab A7. So if you can find this for 150 bucks, I've seen some places where it pops up for like 179 and then it disappears, and it pops up somewhere else for like 160. So if you can find it at a deal for 160, I would say go for it. Why? Simply because I don't think, all of the upgrades, the very subtle upgrades that took place to give birth to the Samsung Galaxy Tab A8 here, I don't think those subtle changes are worth it, right? So sure, it looks good, sharp corners, a more boxier and a little bit more premium looking tablet. But if you are looking for value, no hesitation, just go for the Galaxy Tab A7. And if you already own the Galaxy Tab A7, there is absolutely no reason for you to upgrade from this to this. The changes are just not worth it. Again, as I mentioned, in terms of performance, you're looking at something that performs, they both perform essentially, around the same, right? And they offer essentially the same stuff. Physical features are pretty much the same. Internal storage, the only difference here is that with the Galaxy Tab A8, you have the option to go for an internal storage of 128 gigs, as opposed to the Galaxy Tab A7 here, where you can only do 32 gigs of internal storage with 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs again of internal storage with 4 gigs of RAM, and 68 gigs of internal storage with 4 gigs of RAM. Here you can do 32 with 3 gigs of RAM and 64 and 128 gigs with 4 gigs of RAM. So the only advantage that you get here, so it'd be if you want something that's gonna be supported a little bit longer, as opposed to this one, then you could go for this guy here, right? Because it came out a good year and some change later. If someone were to ask me, which one should I go for? I would say, first, narrow down what you are trying to buy a tablet for, right? So what is the purpose of buying a budget tablet? If it's just to for very simple, which generally it is the case if it's just for very simple tasks, navigating the internet, checking your emails, doing little stuff, entertainment, watching movies, watching YouTube and things like that, playing a little bit of, do some light gaming, then the Galaxy Tab A7 is plenty enough. You don't really need to go for the Samsung Galaxy Tab A8. But that's just my take. But anyway, that was just my humble take. Of course, I'm certainly hoping that this was informative. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video if you know anyone who is in the market for either one of these two. And most importantly, make sure to comment, as I mentioned. I will catch you in that comment section. I will also catch you in the next video. And up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.